Since 2015, Jared Stillman has rocked Nashville sports.
That team freaking stinks.
And now he's back. The takes are hotter than ever.
I mean, let's be honest, he just can't coach.
Welcome to Stillman and Company.
Stillman and Company on the 440 Sports Network, presented by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical here on the 440 Sports Network. Again, we have a loaded show today. Cory Curtis, News 2, going to join us 2:35. You know what my favorite thing? He's the sports director at WKRN, the News 2 affiliate in Nashville. Came on my show every week when I was on the radio for years and years and years. We have not gotten Cory's thoughts on Vrabelgate yet, or the Chad Brinker news, or any of that, and he will join us coming up today. And I know deep down inside, and I'm going to ask him about this when he joins the show, Cory doesn't, I don't think, like coming on the show the way he used to like coming on the radio show. I don't know why. I don't know. It's a weird vibe, but we'll ask him about it. But I decided, I was like, you know what? I want to have Cory on the program today because I do realize we've got a lot of people that are new to the audience. And if you are new to the audience, go ahead, drop a comment. If you're a Jets fan, an Eagles fan, a Patriots fan, we got a lot of different people than just would listen to local terrestrial radio in Nashville. But I look at the core audience, the Stillbillies, and I'm like, hey, we're going to keep doing things the way that we keep doing them, and we're going to go from there and hopefully just keep building the audience day by day. We do have to get to the latest in Vrabelgate, which I was not surprised about, but what it means to me. And the New York Post has some more reporting. We'll get to that. And there's one thing about yesterday that I don't know if anybody else is going to say, so I'm going to say it. And we'll get to that. First, I want to tell you about our presenting sponsor. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. I love Hiller. They take great care of my home. They can do the exact same for you. We don't have a lot of issues at our home as far as drains are concerned, or toilets are concerned, or electrical outlets are concerned, or our HVAC units are concerned. And it's probably because I'm a member of the Happy Hiller Club. So that stuff gets serviced. And I never have to worry about it. Again, they can do the yearly service on it. Boom, done. And we don't have problems. And if we do, or if there's something that we want to do to our home, the first people we talk to, it's Hiller. And they take great care of our home. They can do the exact same for you. Again, for my entire office, and I don't know if you guys heard Hutton talking about it when he came down here for the Friday night draft show, but he's like, wow, this is awesome. Hiller. They were the ones that did the electrical work on it, and they were the ones that told me, hey, you're going to need a mini split. You're not going to be able to just add AC in there. You're going to need a mini split. And this time last year, I learned we need that in a mini split. So call Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. My guys, proud supporters of the Principals of Andy Hiller. Call the Happy Face Truck today. Michael says he's relatively new here, and he is a Buccaneers fan. Welcome, Michael. Again, what do I do whenever we got somebody that says, hey, they just discovered the show? You get the gong. It was funny. I saw as I got on here, Caleb says, let me know if something sports related is talked about on this sports podcast. Well, first of all, Mike Vrabel is a sports coach. He played football in the NFL. That is related to sports. Secondly, it's the biggest story of the year in the NFL. Up to this point. It's the biggest story. Overtook the draft. Yesterday, and this is why we're going to start the show talking Vrabel. And this is why we're going to keep talking about Vrabel. Because Thursday was the most downloaded day in the history of the Stillman and Company program. Now, this program is something like 6 months old. So that's pretty impressive. The numbers that we put up at 6 months old. The second most downloaded day was the day Brian Callahan got fired. The third most downloaded day, again, Thursday was the most downloaded day. The third most downloaded day, Friday. The fourth most downloaded day, yesterday. So if you're me, do you think it would be a good idea to talk about anything else? This is the story of the year in the NFL. ESPN is afraid to touch this. And I'm an expert on the subject. So, yeah, that's what we're going to talk about. And we start with the standing ovation that Mike Vrabel got on Tuesday night. Apparently, there was a Patriots season ticket holder event for club level members at the Patriot Place. And they brought Mike Vrabel in, and the video is out there. I'm sure many of you guys have seen it. He got a standing O as he approached Scott Zolak and Mike Reiss, who were emceeing the event. The Patriots fans were so excited to see their coach. They were backing their coach. And immediately, as soon as that video started to circulate, in fact, I think Portnoy talked about the existence of the video before the video came out. People already started to have takes about the fans and how they got up and applauded the coach, and Vrabel's back, and the Patriots are here to stay. And I had a really strong take about that video, but it really has nothing to do with the fans and the way the fans feel about Vrabel. But when I saw the video of Vrabel receiving a standing ovation, I didn't take that as an endorsement from the Patriot fans, the Patriot season ticket holders that sat in the club level. I didn't take that as an endorsement of, way to go, Mike, keep cheating on your wife. You go, buddy. We're proud of you. As much as I looked at it as an endorsement of, we don't give a shit. You're our coach, and you win. So go, coach. And I think I am uniquely qualified to speak on this topic because I've been through something eerily similar. When I was on the radio in Louisville, Kentucky, and remember, I went to college at Louisville, so I'm a Louisville alum, I'm a Louisville fan, and I was on the radio for 2 years. When I was in Louisville, they rehired Bobby Petrino to be the football coach. So when I see the Patriot fans giving Vrabel the standing ovation, that's not a sign that they approve of what he did. It's a sign that at the end of the day, they don't care. And they don't care because they just want to win. And Mike Vrabel, in his 1 year with the Patriots, has won. And Mike Vrabel, across his 6 years with the Titans, he did do some winning. But I go back to Petrino because I covered Petrino. And I lived it. I was at the bowl game when Louisville beat Miami 100-1, 100-0, whatever it was. It was an absolute blowout. I was at the bowl game when Teddy Bridgewater and Charlie Strong just went ham on Miami. And I was on the radio when Charlie Strong left to take the Texas job. And I was on the radio in Louisville, Kentucky throughout the next football coaching search. Funny story. There were about 6 or 7 candidates at the time that people were talking about. There was obviously a reunion with Petrino on the table. There was talk about Kirby Smart, the defensive coordinator at Georgia. Could he be a fit? There was talk about Chad Morris, the offensive coordinator at Clemson. Could he be a fit? There was talk about Pat Narduzzi, the defensive coordinator at Michigan State. I filled in for Bob Valvano one day, and I was looking for a guest to talk about Pat Narduzzi. So I got the phone number from this college press box website. I got the phone number for the beat writer who covered the Michigan State Spartans. His name was Joe Rexroad. And Joe Rexroad, I sent him a text message. I said, hey, can you come on and fill in for Bob Valvano? And Joe Rexroad said, sure. And I put Joe Rexroad on the air in Louisville, Kentucky, asked him about Narduzzi, what kind of coach Narduzzi would be. And Joe gave an incredible endorsement. He made me think that Pat Narduzzi was going to be the next Nick Saban. I didn't know that he also felt the same way about Jerry Stackhouse, but I digress. But that is actually the genesis of my relationship with Joe Rexroad for everybody out there. So I lived through that. And one of the biggest shames I have about my own career is that in the winter of 2014, in the winter of 2014, I fully endorsed the reunion with Bobby Petrino. I knew about the motorcycle. I knew about the neck brace. I knew about the mistress. I knew about Arkansas. So did everybody else on the planet. But Bobby Petrino was a winner. He won at Louisville. He won at Arkansas. And I wanted to win. Now, that was the 24-year-old me that had that feeling. The 36-year-old me sees things a little differently. And it's not about the motorcycle at Arkansas that bothers me in hindsight. It's about the fact that Petrino stunk. And for those years that Petrino stunk, and even when he had Lamar Jackson and they were kind of good, they still couldn't do anything better than the Buffalo Wild Wings Bowl. And when I had to live through that, when it came to talking about the team that I rooted for, it was like, oh, yeah, your team has Bobby Petrino as the coach. And that's really tough to live with when your team sucks. And so the idea of losing with a lead a-hole as the head coach is something I never want to go through again. Now, on the other side of that, Rick Pitino was coaching basketball, and we know Rick Pitino had his incident, which was somewhat similar to Vrabel. I mean, I don't think there's an abortion involved here with Vrabel, but it was somewhat similar to Vrabel. It was a huge, massive sex scandal. And from that point forward, Rick Pitino eventually started coaching again like Rick Pitino, and he won, and everybody was happy. And it wasn't until they brought Petrino back that it was like, oh, look at it, Pitino and Petrino. And then in came the hooker scandal and the $100,000 and everything else. But ask St. John fans if they care about Rick Pitino's transgressions. They don't, because he wins. And that's the same here in Foxborough. The way this is going to go for Mike Vrabel is, if Mike Vrabel goes on the run that he went on last year, where from about October 3rd until Josh Allen's great comeback in the second half in December, they didn't lose a game, people in New England are not going to care about Mike Vrabel and Diana Rossini. When they got up there and they clapped for Mike Vrabel and they gave him that standing ovation, again, that wasn't, way to go, Mike, keep cheating on your wife. That was, that's our coach that took us to the Super Bowl last year, and we're behind you, coach. Not because we support what you did, but because we don't give a shit. We want to win, and we think you are the reason that we win. So go, coach. And that's fine. That is how American sports fans act. Again, when I was 24 years old, I remember sitting up there in that press box the day that Bobby Petrino was rehired. And there was a giant thing on the scoreboard, welcome home, Coach Petrino. And there were some people that called in that were like, I don't want this Bobby Petrino. He is so amoral. He is so, I mean, I didn't want, we took some calls like that, and I'm like, I don't care. He wins. He wins. And that's what this is all about. And so that standing ovation, again, people are making a big deal about it. The Patriot fans are still behind Vrabel. Did you think they weren't? This isn't the first sex scandal we've ever seen. I bet if Bill Clinton had run for re-election in 2000, the year that Al Gore and George W. Bush went right down to the wire, depends on whose side you were on, what happened in Florida, hanging chads, very close election. If Bill Clinton had run for re-election, if he had been able to run for re-election for a third term, I think he would have won, even though he cheated on his wife and he lied about it. Vrabel cheated on his wife and he lied about it, but you still want him to be the coach. That's why. When this is going to be a problem for Mike Vrabel amongst the Patriot fans is just like me with Bobby Petrino. I, again, was in support of Bobby Petrino becoming the coach again. I supported it. I stood by it. That first year in the ACC, the year before Lamar Jackson got there, they held their own. I supported it. They got to the Belk Bowl. They beat Kentucky. Bobby got into it with a Kentucky coach. Everybody's everything. The next year, Lamar Jackson shows up. The next year, Lamar Jackson wins the Heisman. They beat Florida State at home with Lamar Jackson. That was Lamar Jackson's big coming out party, and I was loving every second of it. I wasn't sitting there saying, oh my God, we have an amoral asshole as our coach. I said, we got a winner, baby. But when they started to lose, that's when it became doubly annoying. It was bad enough that Syracuse was beating us by 30 points. It was another thing that every time they showed our coach on the sideline, everybody across America had the same thought of, oh, that despicable human being, Bobby Petrino. And I said, oh, God. And I was so embarrassed. I was embarrassed by how bad the team was, and I was embarrassed by the a-hole who was the head coach. And that's the deal with Vrabel. Right now, Vrabel wins. And right now, there is an idea that when it comes to Mike Vrabel, that he is the great Mike Vrabel, and he will be the great Mike Vrabel in the future, and the Patriots are going back to the Super Bowl, and Drake May is the next Aaron Rodgers. And when all of that happens, Patriot fans aren't going to care who he slept with. Just like they don't care about Tom Brady knocking up Bridget Moynihan while he's singing Giselle Bundchen. Brady went on a generational run that next year. They were cool with it. If Vrabel starts to lose, then I wonder how people are going to react. If the New England Patriots start off 1-4, are there going to be questions about how much did Vrabelgate distract Vrabel? Is Vrabel a different guy? Oh, what's wrong with Mike Vrabel and the Patriots? There will be some that only look at the roster and say, well, they're not good enough at right tackle, or, well, they're not getting enough sacks. But the story across the country, the Patriots aren't very good this year, is going to be what happened to Mike Vrabel. But that's if they don't win. And those people that are season ticket holders, that are club members, that are in that suite section, they're not expecting not to win. They just went to the Super Bowl. So that's why Vrabel got a standing ovation. It had nothing to do with them approving of Vrabel. It had everything, or what he did, it had everything to do with the fact that they don't care. And they shouldn't. They should just want to win. But as quick as they were to defend him as the reigning coach of the year of the defending AFC champions, they will be equally as quick to turn on Vrabel if things don't go in the right direction this year, in which I think they're going to have a much tougher schedule and a much larger target on their back. That's the first thing. I said I had a take from the Vrabel standing ovation video, and here it goes. This I was so embarrassed by and so upset about and so angry over yesterday. And I know the general public probably doesn't care about this. But if you watch the video of Vrabel getting a standing ovation, there's Scott Zolak, the Patriots radio analyst, who also hosts a show on 98.5 The Sports Hub and is a former New England Patriot in a suit, and he's hyping the crowd up. Come on, come on. And the guy next to him looked an awful lot like Mike Reiss, the unbiased, neutral ESPN.com reporter who covers the Patriots, supposedly without bias, who was the one who broke the story at midnight last Wednesday about Vrabel missing day 3 of the draft. Zolak, I have no problem with. He is the Patriots' lead radio analyst. He is a team employee. And on top of that, he has gone on the record and has said he is staying out of this because he doesn't want to get in trouble. He said, I don't want to get in trouble with Vrabel. I'm friends with Rossini. It's not going to do good things for me if I start throwing stones on the Vrabelgate saga. Got it. He was honest with the audience. He admitted his conflict of interest, and he knows where his bread is buttered. I'm fine with that. The thing that bothered me was Mike Reiss. This is the ESPN.com Patriots reporter. He is supposed to be neutral. He is supposed to be unbiased. He is not supposed to be owned by the team. And he's not supposed to even give the impression that he is owned by the team. That's why people like that don't wear team gear when they cover games, because they don't work for the team. And yet there he is emceeing a team-sponsored pep rally. I thought this was a serious capital J journalist. This is the guy who, again, broke the story at midnight last Wednesday that Mike Vrabel would be missing day 3 of the draft. And then on Monday, when he was on the morning show on 98.5 The Sports Hub, he had apparently absolutely no clue where Vrabel was over the weekend. Take a look.
Why did he have to miss Sunday or Saturday in particular? Like, why that day?
So I don't know the answer to that. I think I'll just go back to what he said, Fred, which was that his family needed him. And in this situation, like maybe they were going somewhere. I think they were going somewhere together as a family that maybe meant, I don't know this, but meant that the place had maybe some meaning to them. And that would maybe describe it.
Okay. So he knows he's not going to say, he's not going to report, he's not going to, well, they probably went somewhere that had some meaning to them. And we find out that that's Park City, Utah. That's their place. So let me get this straight. This guy, Mike Reiss, has been covering the Patriots forever, since Vrabel was a player. He works for ESPN.com. He's on SportsCenter covering the Patriots. He is a capital J journalist. I think he'll get offended when he hears somebody is questioning his credentials. And yet he had the story with quotes from Mike Vrabel last week that he dropped at midnight, 12:10 Eastern time to be exact, about Vrabel missing day 3 of the draft. A mega story with, again, quotes from Vrabel. So he talked to Vrabel about it. And then he doesn't know where Vrabel's going to be? Is that not a simple follow-up question when it comes to a reporter reporting on a story? Hey, Mike, I hear you're not going to be there for day 3 of the draft. Here's the statement Vrabel gives you. Okay, Mike, where are you going to be? And if Vrabel won't tell you, you say, I asked Vrabel where he was going to be. He wouldn't answer that question. But instead, it's I don't know. And the reason he doesn't know, even though he knows, is because Vrabel told him not to say anything. So who do you work for? Do you work for ESPN or do you work for Vrabel? Because I covered Vrabel for 6 years, and you know what I didn't do? I never just took Vrabel's word for it and said it was gospel, because I didn't work for Vrabel. But that's what's happened in this, and this is the big can of worms that has been opened with this Vrabel Rossini improper relationship, and she's an insider and he's a head coach, and a lot of people don't want to touch this, and they say, well, relationships, it's a big deal. It's, are you compromised or are you not? When it comes to Mike Reiss, and I don't know Mike Reiss at all. I interviewed him one time on the local radio show with TD before, I think, a Titans-Patriots playoff game. I can't remember. We had him on once. I followed Mike Reiss for forever. I liked Mike Reiss. I still do, but now I just question his ability to be neutral. Because right now, he looks like a complete and total public relations arm for the New England Patriots. It's time to call it how it is. This is a guy who, again, is a capital J journalist. When there is something big with the New England Patriots, they put him on ESPN. He works for ESPN. But when you're writing Vrabel's PR releases disguised as news on ESPN stationery and dropping them at the crack of midnight, when that is what you've probably been asked to do by the team, and then less than a week later, you're hosting a team pep rally, and I have to guess that in the Q&A, he didn't ask Mike, so Mike, what did you do on Saturday when the other 31 head coaches in the NFL were working on improving their team? You're giving me the impression, Mike Reiss, that your top priority is to disseminate the information that the New England Patriots choose to give you and that they want out on their terms. Then I heard him last week talk about, well, I only want to talk about and cover the things that happen on the field. And when you do stuff like that, I refuse to report on the super negative. I only report what's fed to me. I know other things I don't report, and I'm emceeing the Q&A with the embattled coach. You don't look like a journalist. You look like a fraud. And I think way too many people are afraid to say that. And it's that fear of saying, hey, this guy who's a very respected journalist over the last week has looked like an employee of the New England Patriots, an employee of Mike Vrabels. And the fact that there are so many people out there that are afraid to say it, which is why this is such a big story in the first place. This is why Schefter doesn't want to touch it. This is why ESPN doesn't want to touch it. This is why the networks, because they, at times, are compromised. Bob Costas once said, and I actually took this personally. This was about a month ago. Bob Costas did a podcast where he talked about vitriol was now replacing cynicism. And that these podcast hosts get on there and they tell you everybody's lying to you, and that's just not the way to be. And I know Bob Costas doesn't know me from a jar of Vicks, but I took that personally because I get up here all the time and I say things like, I think the Titans are lying to you. I think Vrabel's lying. I think this person's lying. And yet I push back on that from Costas. The independent people, the people that the New England Patriots can't pick up the phone and call my bosses and get me zapped. Those are the people that have the only ability in today's day and age to be honest about things. I mean, I'm sorry, Mike Reiss. You cannot be hosting team pep rallies. You can't do it. Not if you want people to think you're a journalist. I'm sorry, Diana Rossini, but you can't be fucking a coach. If you want people to take you seriously and you want people to think you're a journalist. And the reason this has been accepted is because for years, when stories come out like Adam Schefter calling Bruce Allen Mr. Editor, and we've seen other journalists in compromising situations, we kind of look the other way and most fans don't care. It's like Brady calling the games on Fox. Nobody really cares because the Raiders suck. So even if Tom Brady is getting an advantage, it doesn't matter to any fans because it's not like it's helping the Raiders. They're the worst team in the league. But it is wrong, in my opinion, to have an owner of a team who is running their operations to be meeting with other players and coaches and coordinators during the week preparing for games. We've blurred the line as to what is being compromised and what is not. And when I saw Mike Reiss at the pep rally, again, Scott's all like, get up for the coach. And here comes Vrabel, and here's the standing ovation. And I mean, Mike Reiss looked like a one that was like, come on, people, get up. Let's go, let's go, let's go. Here's your coach of our New England Patriots. I thought, are you a journalist? Even when I read the Vrabel story that came out on that Wednesday night, there's one sentence about Vrabel missing day 3 of the draft, and then there's 2 paragraphs of quotes from Vrabel. You talk to Vrabel, and you can't say where he is? You're a PR guy. You're not a journalist. So that's the second thing there, which I think is I think it's embarrassing. And I truly think this is why fans don't trust the media, is because of stuff like this, where it's like, well, wait a minute. Mike Reiss knew where he was, but he wasn't going to report it. Why was he going to report it? Well, Vrabel didn't want to report it. Well, who's he work for? Does he work for Vrabel? He would say, no, he doesn't work for Vrabel. But it feels like he works for Vrabel. He's hosting his pep rally. And speaking of where Vrabel was, that does take us to number 3. As page 6 in the New York Post continues to just wipe their tushes with TMZ on this story. I feel bad for TMZ because I think TMZ was afraid to publish this because of the almighty NFL. Page 6 did anyways, and page 6 has just been murdering TMZ on this story. So TMZ has the details about where Mike and Jen Vrabel were and maybe what they were doing on Saturday. According to Page Six, quote, Mike and Jen Vrabel flew to Park City, Utah for an emergency 24-hour marriage summit. Just days after Page Six published exclusive pics of the former athlete cozying up to NFL reporter Diana Rossini at a back bar in 2020. We're told that the New England Patriots head coach and his wife enjoyed dinner at an upscale Park City hotel restaurant around 4 p.m. local time on Sunday, April 26th. They were cordial and talkative, but not overly flirty. A source exclusively told Page Six, noting that the couple, quote, talked and ate for around an hour and a half. They seemed fine. It was a friendly, regular meal. Now, they have the details in here that apparently the porterhouse is $123 and the tomahawk ribeye is $165. Yeah, it's Park City, Utah. They're at a resort, probably where they own one of the residences. Yeah, it's not going to be cheap inside the steakhouse. I think we can all recognize that. So when it came to what to make of this, and I read that story, I thought to myself, okay, so let me get this straight. Vrabel has to leave day 3 of the draft because of his family. But it can't wait until Monday. But it's not important enough to where he'll miss day 1 or day 2 of the draft. What can you do in that time period? So finally, after trying to figure out, okay, if they were both together in Utah, they own a home in Park City. If they're both together in Utah, she's wearing her wedding ring at the airport, according to Page Six. They're having a friendly, cordial meal, which again reminds me of the time that I saw them at Nashville Delicatessen in 2022. If that's the case, what actually could have happened that would have forced Vrabel to miss day 3 of the draft? That Elliott Wolf said, hey, we decided time away has to be time away. So I asked ChatGPT. I said, hey, it's 2026. You know more about this stuff than I would. Give me your opinion. And here is what ChatGPT said about what Vrabel could or could not have been doing. Number one, it believes that the 24-hour summit is likely real, but not necessarily the full story. They could have had a one-day crisis reset session or the start of a longer process. So a quick trip does not mean fixed marriage, but it usually does mean this is urgent enough to address immediately. ChatGPT said that the one-day turnaround matters. If Vrabel was back quickly, which he was, it suggests that it wasn't a long-term separation or rehab type situation, which we now know, but it was likely a targeted and scheduled intervention. Think, we need to talk now with a professional involved. So what it sounds like is Vrabel and Jen decided, hey, and there are so many of these companies across the country. There's one that I really believe in as far as interventions and intensive workshops and things like that. They said, let's call one of these people out there. They can be there Saturday. Okay, I'll be there Saturday. You'll be there Saturday too. And we're going to start. And it's going to be tough to do all of this because Vrabel's very busy as a head football coach. So what is most likely, again, this according to ChatGPT, is they went together, did counseling, left on different schedules. Jen flew back here to Nashville. Vrabel went back to Boston. And that they've coordinated the appearance by showing unity publicly, but still privately sorting all of their things out. ChatGPT says that it wants me to know that this does not prove reconciliation, it does not prove separation, and it does not confirm more motives, i.e., was it a PR stunt? It could have been. Was it all who knows? So I read that and I'm like, you know what? Maybe Vrabel and Jen, they're trying to work it out. I'd have a hard time if I were her. I mean, this is, again, we're talking about 6 years on all of this. So with that, without further ado, we are joined by Cory Curtis from News 2, who joins us on the program, WKRN Sports Director. Cory,
Yeah.
I think I could say without you getting mad at me. When this story broke, do you want to know how I found out about this story? The original Vrabelgate story. Do you want to know how I found out about it?
So you didn't find out about it on page 6.
I am not a page 6 reader, although I've been reading a lot of page 6 lately.
Okay. So how'd you find out about it?
You texted it to me, and you said, enjoy with what you texted. I want to start there. You saw that. Why did you think of me? And what was your reaction to the beginning of the Vrabelgate saga?
Like, I know your show. Okay. That's why. And I knew, I mean, you're like a fish on a hook. You just bite and you go. And I could see what was going to happen with this one. And look, these things are always the same in the fact that they only get worse. They only get worse. I remember I used to do the coach's show when Munchak was the coach, when the whole Penn State fiasco with Jerry Sandusky broke out. And he was adamant that Joe would be okay. And I told him, I said, no, Mike, he's not going to be okay. And neither is the athletic director or the school president. I said, they're all going to go down eventually. And that's exactly what happened. You know, people try to cover stuff up, but more stuff inevitably comes up, you know. And so, you know, was I surprised that more stuff has come up since the original report? No, I'm not surprised. And I don't think you are either. So, you know, I thought when it first happened, it was just the tip of the iceberg and it would only get worse. I just didn't know. And I still don't know where it's going to end.
I thought this was going to be like a one-day story of people saying like, oh my God, ha, 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 and then it would be over. I did not think it would be a 3-week story where Diana has lost her job, which I think she should have. Diana's lost her job. And Vrabel, who knows? I ask you this follow-up here because this isn't just, you know, we've got a lot of people that are Patriot fans that apparently now watch the show. Eagle fans and Jet fans hate Diana Rossini. They love this show. So I ask you this question of pretend that I'm a Boston sports guy or, you know, not a Nashville sports guy, not somebody that what do you make all of this knowing what you know of Vrabel? What's happened over the last 3 weeks?
Well, okay. You remember him from Nashville and you remember one of his most famous quotes, don't do dumb stuff to hurt the team. I think this falls into that category, right? We can look at areas where it quite possibly hurt the team. I remember a certain radio host ranting forever about the Titans blowing C.J. Stroud. Okay? I think you could reasonably point towards that in this situation. But I think, you know, I know there's people upset about the AP voting process of it, but, you know, there's a breach of ethics. There's a breach of ethics on both sides. And that is problematic. I mean, if I'm a team, I'm the Titans. I'm wondering how much did he give away? How much did he give away that he wouldn't give to just a normal reporter? How much, and with New England, how much did he give? You know, there's questions about him planting information with her to collude, you know, to try and swap players. Now, you can do that with Adam Schefter. You can do that with Ian Rappaport. But I think we can all acknowledge this is different. This is different. Yeah. And so I don't think it ever ends where you think it's going to end. So we'll see where it's going to go. I mean, it's already gone further than everybody thought it would, and we'll see how much further it goes.
So I don't know exactly if you, I'm going to start this story, and then if you want me to continue the story, you can let me continue it, or if you want me to stop it, you can tell me to stop it. The moment that I knew something was going on between Vrabel and Rossini, or I say knew, but the moment I started speculating it was when she was on TV and she was arguing with Bart Scott about the Colts versus the Titans and the AFC South and just some typical bullcrap TV segment. Who do you like more? and she made the comment that Mike Vrabel elevates rosters that aren't that exceptional. And I heard that and my head popped up. And at that point, I felt like her source was Mike Vrabel. I felt like I knew her source was Mike Vrabel. And do you want to know why I felt like I knew in that moment that her source was Mike Vrabel? Because somebody else had told me that Mike Vrabel had said something almost identical about a year before that. And I'm not naming names as to who that was or what that was, but her quote on television was verbatim what he told you at one point.
Yeah.
And I heard that. I'm like, he's the source, and I think they're doing it. And I look back at this now, and I'm like, do you think that they ever thought people were going to find out about this?
I don't know if they ever thought people would find out or if people would rat them out. I mean, we don't know who knew and who didn't. I mean, we don't know if nobody knew. I mean, we don't know. We don't know if Jen knew the whole time. We don't know. I mean, the NFL is a different world, right? So, I mean, they have lifestyles that are not the same as ours. So I can't pretend to know who knew and who didn't know how long it was going on. I mean, look, there are parts of this that are really ugly. I mean, there's kids involved in the time frame, and that's problematic. And one of them's named Mike, evidently, which is really problematic.
It's so fucked up.
I mean, we're both parents. That's one way to put it. You know when I got suspicious about how close their relationship was? During COVID, when Vrabel was sick and Stretch coached the team, and she had a hit, and she said, he's going to be a general manager sooner rather than later. And I'm like, there's only one person who would tell her that. Only one person. And he wouldn't say that to anybody else. He's not going to tell anybody else that. I mean, because it was ridiculous to say at that point Stretch was going to be a GM. But I already felt like, well, he's plotting to push out Robinson and put Stretch in place, which is pretty much what's happened in New England, right? Stretch pretty much running the show.
I think that this is actually my read on it, New England. And, I don't cover the Patriots, so I don't, but I follow enough of what's going on up there.
Yeah.
So I truly believe that, and I have no knowledge of this, I haven't talked to J-Rob about this at all, and I haven't talked to J-Rob about what I'm about to accuse Robert Kraft of doing. I think Robert Kraft called J-Rob before he hired Vrabel and basically said, hey, what do I need to know about Vrabel that I don't already know about Vrabel as a coach? And I think J-Rob told him, like, hey, you've got to make sure that you get the offensive coordinator in check, and you need to keep him, keep your eyes on him in personnel, which is why Elliott Wolf stayed and Kraft hired Josh McDaniels to coach the offense. And I believe Elliott.
He also brought in Cowden, right?
Yes. So, TD said that last year, so before the season last year, he went to a place that he loves at the Senior Bowl, TD did, and said when he walked in, it was Vrabel, Cowden, and Stretch. And I said, was Elliott Wolf there? And TD was like, no. And I think the sentiment was Elliott Wolf was just kind of Vrabel's yes man who was there to keep an eye on what Vrabel and Cowden and Stretch were doing and then to report back to Jonathan Kraft. And I think what's happened in all of this is I think Elliott Wolf has become empowered through this of like, no, Elliott, I think Elliott Wolf's job security has gone up by about 100% in the last month because I think he may now be the chief football guy there because Vrabel's standing has taken such a hit.
Yeah. I mean, look, he is definitely taking a shot. There's no way around it. And, I know he got that standing ovation from the fans there. And it doesn't mean anything. How do the players respond?
Cory Curtis with us on our program here. I think Cory froze up on me, which I really am excited about the next question I was going to ask, which is, Do you think Vrabel will ever be the same? Because I do not think that Mike Vrabel will ever be the same. And then the other question I had for Cory was, do the Titans look better because of what happened? Again, for the last year, everyone's talked about how the great Mike Vrabel was so great. And then I also want to know his thoughts on the Chad Brinker thing, because, again, for some reason, everybody in Nashville is treating this as if Chad Brinker voluntarily retired or Chad Brinker voluntarily moved on. And I'm pretty sure that Chad Brinker got a soft firing as far as he was concerned. And I also wanted to talk about myself a little bit. Again, what I consider to be a generational heater that I feel like I am on. Let's see if we got Cory back here. Cory, we got you back? Let's see. We're working on it. We'll see when we get him back. Oh, I think we got him back. Cory, we got you back?
Yeah, I apologize. My Wi-Fi is not so good the last few days. So if I was at work, this would be a problem, but you got the day off.
Are you at the house? Are you out on vacation? What are we doing here?
Staycation.
Ah, okay.
I just had the draft last week. We drove to Pittsburgh and back. Last week was a long week. And
Okay.
So I took 2 days off.
Do you think Vrabel will ever be the same after this? Do you think that he will be the same coach, or do you think this will be like Tiger Woods after his scandal, where he wasn't the same Tiger anymore?
Yeah, I think it's hard for him to be the same guy. People will always look at him differently.
I think he'll look at himself differently. Like, I think he'll have a harder time being the same asshole that he's always been, because he is going to have this cloud over his head where he's like, he was Mr. Call people out, hold people accountable. And I think it's got to be hard. Vrabel's not stupid. I mean, he's a lot of things, but he's not an idiot. He is at least sometimes self-aware when he doesn't become too arrogant for his own good. But I think his cockiness and arrogance has been hit because of this.
Do you think this plays out any differently if he just comes out immediately and is like, hey, made some really bad decisions. I want to apologize to the team, my family. I want to apologize to the fans. I know this is not the example that I need to set. We're all human. I made a really human, I don't want to call it a mistake. This was a decision I made. This was a terrible, terrible, selfish decision I made. If he had just fallen on the sword from the get-go, taken personal responsibility, do you think this would have changed the path of the story?
I think he and Rossini denying it and the way that they denied it at the beginning just added gasoline to the fire. And this is not, Mike Felger in Boston came out today and he said that he thinks the Boston media has been kind of soft with how they've been handling this. I say this with all due respect, Cory. I love you and I love the Nashville media, but there's a part of me that thinks that Vrabel thought he could just bullshit his way out of this, because I feel like Vrabel, when he was the coach here, oftentimes bullshitted himself out of trouble in the past. And everybody believed him and everybody accepted it. And so I feel like he probably thought he could do that. Dude, this is
as long as you win games.
Sure. But this is page 6.
As long as you win games, you'll be okay.
But this is page 6. This is the big leagues. Like, this is not, being asked questions with all due respect by Terry McCormick. This is page 6. Do you think the Titans...
This is national.
I never once had a problem with the Titans firing Mike Vrabel. I wanted them to fire Mike Vrabel. Now, I also wanted them to fire Rand Carthon, which they didn't do. But I wanted them to fire Mike Vrabel. I thought it was time to fire Mike Vrabel. I thought Vrabel had really run stale both with the team and with the city. Do you think the Titans look better in firing Vrabel after all of the shit that they just had to deal with, of people saying, oh, how could you fire Mike Vrabel? Look at him in the Super Bowl. And now there's this whole mess. And do you think that this makes Amy Adams Strunk look better or feel better?
No, I don't, because they've won 12 games in 3 years.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that makes you feel better from that. Now, I mean, do you feel better about your decision to move on? Maybe, because you avoided this storm that happened. But look, if if you'd hired Sean McVay, to replace him, and you were rolling right along, you might be thumping your chest right now. But when you win 6 games in 2 years, you got no room. It's like when you're down 42-7 and you catch the first down catch and you get up and you give the big first down signal. That would be like doing that right now. They just need to keep their head down and keep moving forward and try to get out of this cycle of being the worst franchise in the league right now.
Cory Curtis with us. He's the sports director at WKRN News 2 in Nashville. Cory, what did you make of Chad Brinker? Because I know what the Titans said. I know what the statements say. Yeah. I believe this was a soft firing. I believe that Amy Adams Strunk gives everybody the benefit of the doubt for 1 year, and then she fires you the next year. Rand got an extension after the Titans went 6-11 and Vrabel got fired. Chad got a promotion after Rand got fired. Brian Callahan got a second year after a train wreck of a first year. She gives you 1 year, and then if you don't improve or if you don't, she fires you. And now Mike Borgonzi got his free pass for last year, and now he's in charge. And I think if they stink this year, she'll fire him. But I go back to Brinker. I said when they said that she had handed the football responsibilities to Mike Borgonzi, that this was a soft firing and that Chad Brinker would be gone sooner rather than later. The day after the draft, he is gone. Do you believe that this was all on his own volition and everything's good on the up and up? Or do you think that he's just the latest casualty in the nonstop changing of Amy Adams Strunk's football trust factor?
So when the Titans went to the playoffs 4 times in 6 years, did they change anything?
No.
Yeah, she wants to win. That's what she wants. And if you're not winning, she's going to get rid of you. Okay? So you're right. If they win 3 games again next year, somebody else is probably getting fired, because we've seen other teams come in and go to the Super Bowl in the first year, right? It is possible to turn things around. And if you can't turn things around, they're going to try to find somebody who does. I think Chad Brinker was inevitably going to be leaving from the moment he hired Mike Borgonzi. We had all these discussions about who's picking the players, blah, 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 blah. I mean, ultimately, Amy picks the players. They're all hers. So if we want to play this game about, well, is it Brinker? Is it Borgonzi? Ultimately, it's Amy. She owns the team. Borgonzi was hired to pick the players. Whether Brinker approves of it or not is really irrelevant to me, because Borgo was hired to be the general manager and to pick the players. Eventually, that was going to bear itself out, whether it was one way or the other. So whether it's a soft firing or the structure just changed, because that just sometimes happens at companies, and he decided he didn't like the way it changed, this path was inevitable. Look, that job, running the facilities, running analytics, that's still a big job, but it's not for everybody. And if you're a personnel guy, you're going to probably want to get back into personnel. So, whether he was fired or not doesn't really matter, because he wasn't picking the players anyway. Borgonzi was and is. So it's irrelevant to me.
I will never argue that who is technically in charge of football operations is not important. I think that it is paramount as to who has final say on all football matters, which this time last year it was Chad Brinker. I just felt like when they announced before the coaching search, when they announced that Mike Borgonzi was going to be in charge of football operations at that point, Chad would have the same title, but he'd be in charge of the equipment and the facilities and the IT and everything else. I'm like, he got fired. And the Titans got really mad at me because I said that. The Titans were like, that's not true. And I'm like, they argued in their statement. I say they argued. They said in their statement that they approached Amy and said, hey, Amy, it would be better if Mike was in charge, and that Amy obliged. I don't believe that for a second. And the only reason, because nobody just gives up full say in the NFL. And the only
was
reason
there anything more uncomfortable than those pressers with the two of them sitting up there together?
What was crazy about the Callahan firing If you remember, Chad Brinker's the one that released the statement about Callahan being fired. Then they had the press conference that night. Brinker was the one taking the questions. Borgonzi was taking them too, sitting next to Brinker. But the difference in the two of them, Brinker was sweating bullets, and Borgonzi was just sitting there like this.
Yeah.
And you could tell one guy was nervous about their job, and the other guy couldn't give a shit. And that was because at that point in time, Brinker was the one on the hot seat.
By the way, Amy was right. That was 100% the right move.
I know, but Brinker, I don't think, wanted to fire him because I think he knew that as soon as he did, the attention was going to be on him.
Yeah, he's the next chopping block.
I just think that what happened was what Amy always does. And this, again, this doesn't mean anything about Borgonzi. I don't know if Borgonzi's any good or not. I don't think he is, but that's a different discussion.
Okay.
I believe that the way she operates is she gives somebody a free pass and then elevates people that were hired by the person she just fired, and I don't get that. It's like Rand Carthon stinks, so let's elevate the guy that he hired, Chad Brinker. Chad Brinker stinks, so let's elevate the guy that he hired, Mike Borgonzi. What are we doing?
Okay. So, you know Steve Underwood. You knew Floyd really well. And those were two people that Amy could always lean on in tough times, especially when she first took over. And, Floyd passed away and Mr. Underwood left. I think he's recently come back and is plugged back in. But I think as we've gone through this tumultuous cycle, I think she has struggled to find that person she can lean on to make these big decisions, to help guide her through it. And I think it's led to some of the more knee-jerk reactions that we talk about, firing J-Rob after the Eagles game, some of those types of things. And so, I think, she needs to have that person, and I think she's looking for it, that she can trust. I think she grabs somebody and thinks, oh, I can trust this guy. He seems sharp. And then she finds out he's not who I thought he was. Get out. Get out. And so you've got a year or two to show her you get in the circle of trust and you get to stay there. But you got to produce.
You think Steve Underwood's back in?
I heard he was back connected with the team as a consultant. This was like a year ago.
Very interesting information from Cory Curtis.
Because I asked how this affected Burke Nihill, and Burke supposedly, has a great relationship with him and is happy that he's there. We know Mr. Underwood is part of this team through some of its very best days, and he basically ran the team at the end of Bud's tenure. That's basically, except for Floyd being the GM, he ran the team though, and so I don't know how big his role is, but I'm glad he's back. You
know who I think she should lean on and trust when it comes to who can set her straight on the football team?
Who's that?
Me. And I'll tell you why. Cory, I think I am on a generational heater right now.
Okay.
Between Sam Darnold, Vrabel and Rossini.
Hey, have you let anybody
Chad
know
Brinker.
that you were on Sam Darnold? Did you let anybody know about that?
Hey, I let the Titans know about that. I went to the Titans myself, and I said to the Titans, you need to sign Sam Darnold. And they said, no, we don't think he's that good. And I want to ask Chad Brinker right now, Chad, do you think you'd still have your job if you had listened to me and you had signed Sam Darnold in free agency?
Well, not only signed Sam Darnold in free agency, you would have signed Sam Darnold and traded away the first pick for all those picks. And that's what was on my board at work. That was the play for me. That was the number one play. Look, if you wanted to draft Cam Ward, I get it. You want the rookie quarterback on the rookie deal, and you think he's a guy. But that was the deal. That was my first deal that I would have taken.
I agree. But if between that, Vrabel and Rossini, I've been right about that for years. And then
you may have said a few things about it. We may have had a few discussions.
And then, again, I said on January 2nd that Brinker was out when they said, "Oh, Brinker's, voluntarily gave the football responsibility." No. I was right about that. This is what happened. Amy and I asked the Titans, and they have not responded if Brinker is still getting paid, because I bet you Brinker, even though he resigned, I bet you Brinker's still getting paid. And I think that the reason why, but he's making team president money, and that next job he gets, I don't think will be team president money. But when it comes to Brinker, I believe that when he essentially got demoted and Borgonzi took over on January 2nd, I believe that was the soft firing, and that Amy paid Brinker a bunch of money to not be upset about it publicly. And they didn't just part ways with Chad Brinker then, because they wanted to run a coaching search, and they didn't want coaching candidates to think, holy crap, are these people fickle? It would have just added to what people already think about them. And that's why they paid to hush Brinker and put him in the corner. And then as soon as the draft was over, they announced Brinker was stepping down, and they've made it look like everybody is so happy and will miss each other forever. And I just think that that's bullshit.
Looks like I've disappeared on you again.
Do you think that's a conspiracy theory? Oh, we lost Cory Curtis on that one. I wonder if he got shot on that one on purpose. By the way, TDG, would Rand have still had a job if we had CJ Stroud? No. Rand stunk, TDG. Get it straight. Rand Carthon. One person said, did I miss Jared's Vrabel obsession? 18 out of the last 19 videos. I won't support this addiction. I'll tune in later. First of all, tuning in later is still supporting the obsession/addiction. And secondly, I mean, it's the biggest story in football. And again, I'd like to think that I'm kind of an expert on the biggest story in football. And I stand by it. People get all upset. One person says, you're here now and it's almost over, bro. Well, who knows how much longer this show will go on. One person says, Drake May was hurt going into the Super Bowl. The Patriots said he was fine. We had the Pro Football Doc on at the Super Bowl, and we talked about Cam Ward's shoulder and some other things with the Pro Football Doc. And then I asked the Pro Football Doc, about the Super Bowl, and he was like, I saw the hit Drake May took, and I don't think Drake May is going to be okay. And then I watched that game, and Drake May didn't look okay. Seattle was the better team. And that has nothing to do with Drake May, who I really, really like, and Vrabel, who's a good coach. Seattle just had a better team. Seattle versus the Rams was the real Super Bowl. And that's why the Rams and Sean McVay pretended to be all upset about drafting Ty Simpson, because they know that Matthew Stafford knows that they're one player away, and they took a quarterback. So that's that one, at least as far as I'm concerned. One person says Vrabel is skating on thin ice. I don't believe that. I believe that as long as, I was thinking about this when it comes to the bombshells, and I'm like, if when it comes to Vrabel, if Mike Vrabel, Cory, I want your opinion on this. When it comes to Vrabel, if Mike Vrabel, if it comes out, is there anything that could come out that would cost Vrabel his job? I mean, obviously, if it comes out that Vrabel took, stole from Robert Kraft to fund a purse he bought for Diana, that would be what. But I'm talking about, again, you brought up the child named Mike thing, and people have been running with that on the internet and everything else. Do you think there's anything that could cost Vrabel his job in this? Oh, whoops. I have him muted. That's my fault. I muted you, Cory. My bad. I'm trying to unmute you, and it won't let me unmute you. Oh, well, Cory, I'll talk to you later. For some reason, I can't unmute you. So I love you, but I'll talk to you later. Cory Curtis news too. By the way, I think the answer is no. I think that when it comes to Vrabel, I think that even if it comes out that Diana Rossini's son is his son, which I hate even saying because it makes me feel very, very young. But if that were to happen, then I still think he'd be the Patriots coach. I don't think Vrabel's going to lose his job over this. And I don't think Vrabel should lose his job over this. Apparently, I am hearing that I'm guessing Steve Underwood has always been somewhat of a consultant for the Titans. Belvis says, I think the more they keep talking about this, and it is perceived that the NFL is being drug into this by Vrabel, he will be fired by Kraft. Don't see it. Don't see it. Because at the end of the day, the NFL is a trade association. I heard Albert Breer say this. The NFL is a trade association, and you can't tell the clubs what to do. And they're not going to tell the club what to do. I do love the fact, though, that this has become the story. I don't understand. The people I don't think people understand. Like, this is the top story in the NFL. When you're like, why are you talking about it? It's because it's the biggest story in the league. Karen goes, I don't follow the Patriots or the Titans that closely, but I didn't know Vrabel was such an asshole. That's the thing about Vrabel. He's an asshole. And when it comes to Vrabel being an asshole, when you win, everybody thinks that that's part of the secret sauce. And when you lose, everybody thinks, God, what an asshole. And so when he was here and he won, everybody thought that was the great Mike Vrabel. When he lost and he acted like an asshole, everybody, including the owner and the fans, got sick of it. But Vrabel was a total asshole as the coach. And I say that as both a bad thing and a good thing. That's not something new here on the program. Corey did ask me, what if they find out that Vrabel and Rossini fooled around in the building? Still don't think he'd get fired over it. Still do not believe that there is anything here that will happen that will cost Mike Vrabel his job. Though that could be part of it. One person in the chat says, you can't make the assumption that Jen Vrabel just found out about her husband. This could have been something she knew about, and as long as it wasn't discovered publicly, she made peace with it. I don't want to speak for other women, and I'm certainly not speaking for my relationship because my relationship is not this way. Then again, we've been together for 2 years. So there's a difference between being together for 2 years and being together for 40 years, and I understand that. But I believe that there are a lot of these relationships with pro athletes, rich guys, etc., in which the wife probably doesn't know for a fact that the husband's fooling around, but she knows. She doesn't know, but she knows. I think that happens far more often than you think. And I don't know Jen Vrabel, so I can't tell you if that had been going on and Jen knew about it. She knew even if she didn't know, or maybe she did know and she didn't care. I don't know. And if that's the case, I think that does change the tenor of the discussion. Because if you knew and you're okay with it, then why would all of a sudden you be upset? The one thing I have heard, though, in those circles is that a lot of those wives that understand that their guys are fooling around on the side basically make it known, whatever you do, don't embarrass me. And there's no way you can say Vrabel didn't embarrass Jen Vrabel with all of this. AKA, if you want to fool around in the hotel room at 2 o'clock in the morning, be my guest. You fool around in the New York Post, we've got problems. And this ended up in the New York Post. You know, I'm a big follower of this woman named Shira. I don't even remember exactly how I found her on Instagram, but her name is Shira. And she basically is like a gold digging coach. I absolutely love her. In fact, I should have had a Shira post ready to go so I could talk to you about Shira. But Shira just says it like it is. She is all about guys paying for stuff, guys being the provider, guys, don't go out with dusties, which is what she refers to, poor people, guys that can't buy you stuff. And Shira always makes me laugh, and that's why I follow her. But Shira all the time talks about how men are going to cheat, and that's okay. You just have to make sure that you're the one that's getting your car paid for. You're the one that's getting to go on vacations. You're the one who's flying first class. You're the one who's, and maybe Jen Vrabel understood that. I don't know. Be hard for me to contend that it's one way or another. One person says, invite Shira on the show. How could I get Shira onto my podcast? She has like 9 different Instagram accounts. I don't even know which one is hers. Plus, Lindsay apparently tried to get Shira to record me a video for Christmas, and she couldn't get a hold of her. So she ended up buying Shira's book for, it was like How to Live a Dust-Free Life. I'm going to have a Shira video up here for you people sometimes. One person says, what is your take on the report that Rossini is going to sue whoever took the pictures of her and Vrabel? Any concern she might come after you if that's true? Well, I didn't take the pictures, so I think it would be really hard for her to sue me. Here's why I'm not worried about getting sued. Number one, before I posted my first reaction video to Vrabel, I did text my buddy who's a lawyer, and I said, can I get sued for this? And he said no. Number two, defamation is when you say something that you know is not true, and you say it as if it is true, and there is proof that you know it is not true. So let me give you an example of defamation. If I knew that, and it's much harder to prove defamation against a public person than it is a private person. Let's just say, if I knew that Santa wasn't fooling around on Mrs. Claus, like I knew it, and Santa had told me it was not true, and Santa had provided me with proof that it was not true, and I got on there and I knowingly said Kris Kringle is squawking on Mrs. Claus because he's such a piece of shit, then I could be sued. If there was proof that I knew that what I was saying was made up. Well, I mean, look, I don't ever plan on giving over my phone, but if I ended up getting sued and it went into discovery, my phone's going to pull up text messages from 2022 and 2023 of me telling people I think Vrabel and Rossini are doing it. And that's probably why Vrabel and Rossini aren't going to sue anybody over this, because the second they sue somebody is the second that their cell phones get picked up, and now all of a sudden everything comes out. So let me just say this. I am all for Diana Rossini wanting to sue somebody. I would prefer that it not be me, because if I get sued, then I have to hire a lawyer, and even though I would win and she would probably have to pay the court costs on the back end, I don't want to pay 15 to 30 grand to defend myself in court against stupid bullshit from Diana Rossini. But I do hope she sues somebody, because if she sues somebody, then we'll get her phone records out in discovery. That's what I want. But no, I don't think Diana Rossini will sue me. My mom was the same way. My mom's a lawyer. My mom was like, well, do you think you could get sued? And I was like, no. No. One person says, from 4 wins to triple to the Super Bowl. Cut him some slack. Okay. Okay. We're only cutting him slack because he wins, though, right? Like if he was Brian Callahan, would we? No, he fired. I remember I was a Vanderbilt fan when Kevin Stallings was the head coach at Vanderbilt. And I don't know if you remember, but they beat Tennessee, and one of the players was talking shit, and Stallings was caught on a microphone being like, I'm going to fucking kill you. And I was like, they need to fire Stallings. And people were like, really? Why? I was like, because I just don't think he's a very good coach. That's why. I'll use this as the excuse, but no, because I just think he sucks as a coach. One person said, oh my God, if Rossini came on this show, could you imagine the numbers? So it's funny. Sarah Giles, who's our social media director, she reached out to me and she said, how do you get Diana on your show? I said, let me tell you something. I don't know if Diana is ever going to talk about this, but the one place that she absolutely will not talk about this is on this program. A lot of people are thinking she should go on Call Her Daddy. I think Diana should just... And I would not be surprised if Diana ends up signing an NDA with either Vrabel, the Patriots, the NFL, or the Athletic, or whomever, and does not talk about this. I mean, if Diana's plan post-inside her career is to host a podcast, then she needs to get on there and she needs to say what happened. That has to be her first podcast. If she doesn't do that, then people will go to her podcast for the first podcast and then they'll probably never listen to her again. Diana, I think, has to lean into this and kind of open all the doors. And I don't know if she's going to do that or not. One person says, Vrabel is all ego. Let's see how he handles the criticism. I wonder how Vrabel's going to handle his own self-criticism. Because I know Vrabel's looking at himself in the mirror like, man, I'm a piece of shit. And that's not the cocky and arrogant Mike Vrabel that wins. That is not the guy that has won all those games. Okay, that's it for us today. Thanks to Cory Curtis for jumping on the program. Like and subscribe. We will see everybody most likely tomorrow at 2 o'clock.